So what would you say would be the one key takeaway you'd like to leave the audience with?
We allow users to present complex, time-dependent data sets clearly in animated form. And we've tried to make this as flexible as possible to really handle any scenario and outputs from any simulation platform out there.
Welcome everybody. Ron Miller with FPrin LLC back here again to offer up some new capabilities, some really cool capability that we have at FPrin now. I have with me Lawrence Smith, who is a mechanical engineer at FPrin. He's going to talk about some new and interesting capabilities that we have that we're calling SAVI, or Synchronous Advanced Visualization for Simulation Results. Essentially, it's a way to take FEA analysis and simulation and make it much more easily consumable in terms of putting it into a visual form. Hi, Lawrence, how are you?
I'm doing great. Hey, Ron. Yeah, I'm an FPrin engineer. I specialize in numerical simulation of structural mechanics problems, and I'm excited to dive through our SAVI software.
Lawrence, could you really quick just give us an explanation of what SAVI is, what it does, and what the motivation was behind it?
Sure thing. So here at FPrin, we use numerical simulation often in order to predict a system's response to mechanical or thermal loading. The simulation is never the end unto itself, right? We want to learn something from this numerical analysis. We want to extract some kind of insight. And that's relatively easy to do for simple linear simulations. So here on the top row, I've got an example of, some sort of bracket with some applied loads. And then I've got a contour plot showing the magnitude of the stress under those loads. And this is maybe a basic finite element simulation you do in order to test whether a structural component was robust in loading. However, at FPrin, we also do much more complex finite element simulations. And so these may involve multiple bodies in non-deterministic or intermittent contact with multiple contact zones. So for example, on this lower row, we have a snap ring being pressed into a clip. And you can see that you begin with contact on either side of this circular face. That contact path shifts around the circumference of the face. And then finally, a third contact point occurs at the tip of the ring. So as these simulations become more complex and involve multiple bodies and large deformations and solutions that evolve over time, often single snapshots are not enough in order to explain or convey the meaning of the simulation, the thing you were trying to learn and the reason why you ran it. And that is especially true when you're communicating with non-technical clients who may not be experts in numerical simulation themselves.
Great, really interesting stuff, Lawrence. I understand you have a white paper that you'd like to share with everybody, and that white paper we're going to have available on the website as well. Can you just go over and review that white paper really quickly?
Absolutely. Yeah, in order to address this communication gap in conveying the insight in a complex simulation, we've prepared a short white paper to outline the motivation and the utility of this software package, SAVI. And we describe some of the ways that we use it here at FPrin in order to prepare visualizations of simulation outputs that are presentable to clients. So this short white paper just gives some examples of these complex nonlinear multi-body problems. And it also describes a demonstrator problem that we contrived in order to show our SAVI package in action and the outputs that we can get from it.
Great, Lawrence. I understand that you actually have a live walkthrough of that demonstrator that displays the SAVI capability, and you can basically share that with the audience, yeah?
Yeah, sure thing. So I'll flip over to SolidWorks and we'll walk through this demonstrator problem that we contrived. So what we're looking at here is a drywall anchor that's been installed into an oversized hole. And what we're going to do is first deploy the anchor by prescribing a displacement at this rear face of the anchor sleeve towards the inside face of the wall. This is going to cause the sleeve walls to buckle outwards. And then as soon as the deployment's finished, we're actually going to prescribe a displacement at this end of the screw, basically forcing the anchor out of the wall, kind of yanking it out. And the entire time we're going to keep track of the displacement and the stress and the contact profile between the various bodies in the simulation. And if I flip over to these results, what we can see is I have applied some symmetry conditions in order to reduce the computational cost. And if I display our stress results, we can take a look at a snapshot in time of what this assembly looks like at the conclusion of the animation. So I've actually executed this simulation in advance. It's a non-linear simulation where we increment the loading profiles over many increments because we've got large displacements involved. And we keep track of our outputs here in this tab of our SOLIDWORKS window. If we take a look at any of these outputs, we can visualize a contour plot of the stress at a single snapshot, a single snapshot in time of our simulation. And SOLIDWORKS also allows us to animate this deformation. So in addition to displaying snapshots in time, most simulation packages also allow you to animate the entire time history of a numerical solution. In this case, what we're looking at is the deformation of the assembly throughout the simulation with contours of stress plotted over the deformed geometry. However, this simulation is still so complex. As you can see, there's contact between the wall and the outer sleeve. There's self-contact between the inner faces of the sleeve. And finally, there's contact between the outer sleeve and the shank of the bolt. And if you wanted to really understand the contact forces at these various locations or the reaction force required at the head of the bolts at various points in the simulation, even an animation isn't enough to explain this. This is why we developed SAVI.
That's great, Lawrence. So given the outputs on the FEA, what exactly can you do with SAVI to make the simulation results more consumable?
Right. So with SAVI, what we can do is take simulation results from any platform. So whether you use SOLIDWORKS Simulation or ANSYS or Abacus, you can output single panes, you can output animations, you can output time history data, like equilibrium plots. What SAVI does is basically takes these simulation outputs and picks up where the FEA package is left off. We create custom multi-pane animations that can display any arbitrary number of animated results and play them back in a time synchronous fashion. So in this example, we're displaying two different angles of the animation that I looked at in SOLIDWORKS simultaneously, as well as a time synchronous plot of the axial load that's carried by the bolt, along with the maximum radial deflection of the wings. And this is what the output of our SAVI software looks like. And as you can see, the equilibrium path traced by the plot on the left is complex. And any one of these three outputs would likely be insufficient. As you can see, this response portrait is complex and there's multiple discontinuities in the slope. These discontinuities correspond with points, with moments of contact between various pieces of the assembly. And looking at any one of these three outputs alone, it would make it challenging to understand the critical story that we're trying to learn from the simulation. But given this animation that we can rewind through and play forward at any speed we like, we find that we can actually communicate complex scenarios really easily.
Great, Lawrence. So I guess as we were saying before, this is a great way for not only just the engineer to understand what's going on with the simulation results, but a great way for you to show this to even non-technical folks such as investors or maybe upper management. But it's just an excellent way to show kind of the graphical as well as the visual results that are going on with a particular system as it's going through whatever motion it's going through. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. We've designed this to be pretty agnostic to input type. So it's really aimed at being very flexible and creating time synchronous multi-pane animations for quantitative and qualitative data. And the goal is just to present complex data sets clearly in animated form.
So what would you say would be the one key takeaway you'd like to leave the audience with?
Yeah, well, the key takeaway is that executing a complex simulation is only half of the battle. Really, the second challenge is communicating the core insight that that simulation produces to a wide audience. And that's, I think, where we've filled a gap with our SAVI software. We allow users to present complex, time-dependent data sets clearly in animated form. And we've tried to make this as flexible as possible to really handle any scenario and outputs from any simulation platform out there.
Great, Lawrence. I think that's a pretty good summary of what the SAVI capability is. Just to let the audience know, this capability is available. All you need to come to us with is your simulation results, or obviously we can do it with our own simulation results as well. Both the white paper and this example, in terms of the case study or the demonstrator, will be available on our website. We'll put that link right over here. You can follow it there if you want. Thank you so much, Lawrence, and thank you, audience. Have a great day.
Absolutely. See ya.